Joe, I can't sleep. Tell me a scary story.
Okay. This is a story that was told to me a while ago. In the peaceful village of Merrow, the whispers of the night harbored dark secrets, and the moon always held a slightly paler hue. The elders told stories in hushed tones, but there was one tale repeated with near-reverent respect. Once unleashed, the forces of darkness destroy everything in their path. By day, the village resembled any other, but as darkness fell, a deeper shadow settled over Merrow. In its most secluded and silent corners, a secret group stood watch, ensuring the safety of all. With their ancient knowledge and artifacts imbued with unknown energies, they were the last line of defense against the unexplained. Darius, with his bright and curious eyes, often sat by the fireplace listening to the tales of his grandfather Samuel. These stories, with their blend of horror and heroism, were the sole comfort for a boy still grieving the loss of his parents. The family mausoleum, an aged stone monument, had always drawn Darius in, but it was a particular statue that captured his focus. Seemingly lifeless, almost cruel in appearance, its glassy eyes seemed to trap the moon, while its sealed mouth hid unspeakable secrets. Every time Darius gazed upon it, a chill ran down his spine, as if a cold wind blew just for him. Losing Samuel was not merely a farewell to a loved one. It felt as though a beacon in Darius's life had been extinguished, leaving him adrift in a dark sea of despair and loneliness. His pain was the sole constant, an unwelcome companion with every step and every thought. And so, on the day of the funeral, as the sky's gray mirrored his own mood, something extraordinary happened. In the midst of the cemetery, the statue, always cold and lifeless, seemed to possess a newfound energy. The eyes that were once merely decorative now shone with an almost supernatural light, and as Darius watched, he felt a disconcerting sensation of being watched in return. It was as if those eyes were studying him, evaluating him, trying to communicate something urgent and vital. Magnetized, Darius felt drawn to the statue, each step taking him deeper into a world he didn't understand. And just when he was close enough to touch it, his mind was flooded with visions. He saw rusted chains, shackles enclosing a being of darkness, its face twisted in a silent scream of rage and despair. But what truly chilled his blood was the appearance of a young Samuel, his face filled with determination and fear simultaneously. Samuel, with his resonant voice though distorted by time, warned him of the danger of getting too close, of succumbing to curiosity, and of unearthing secrets that were meant to remain hidden. The words of his grandfather, laden with anguish, rang in Darius with a desperate urgency, pulling him back to the cold reality of the cemetery. When Darius fell to the ground, a cloud of dust and dry leaves rose around him, and the sepulchral silence of the cemetery became even more palpable. From the shadows emerged the old cemetery caretaker, his slender and hunched figure advancing slowly, as if each step required monumental effort. His skin, weathered by time and outdoor labor, showed deep creases, and his hair, as white as snow, contrasted with the darkness surrounding him. He stopped beside Darius, observing him with eyes that, despite being clouded by age, shone with an unusual intensity. His gaze, which seemed to have seen beyond time and space, settled on the young man with a mix of concern and reproach. "Son," he began with a raspy and tired voice, "this place is full of stories that most prefer to forget. Those ancient warnings weren't just tales to frighten children. They were lessons passed down from generation to generation to protect us from the evil that dwells here. He bent down slowly, placing a shaky hand on Darius's shoulder. The rumors about that statue, he continued, are not just rumors. It is the guardian of a secret so old and dark that not even I, with all my years, know its entire truth. The old man closed his eyes for a moment as if recalling something painful. I've seen many, driven by curiosity or bravery, approach that statue and get lost in its mysteries. And I'll tell you, young Darius, not all of them returned. With a sigh, the cemetery caretaker straightened up slightly, his gaze fixed on the cursed statue. Some secrets, he whispered with a seriousness that chilled Darius's blood, are better left buried, hidden in the depths, where daylight cannot reach them. Not all of us are prepared to face what lies in the darkness. But the terror did not stop there. As night fell, in Darius's silent and lonely room, the television, which was turned off, suddenly came to life. The initial static gave way to a distorted image, but soon the shadowy silhouette of the statue emerged, filling the screen with its imposing and sinister presence. Those eyes that were once inert now sparkled with unsettling malevolence. From them flowed a dark and viscous liquid, which seemed to not only flow on the screen, but also dripped from the edge of the TV, spreading across the floor like a black, contaminating stain. The air turned cold and charged with electricity. A raspy, mocking voice began to whisper from the shadows of the room, twisting words in such a way that every sentence sounded like a curse. "You've awakened what should have remained asleep," it repeated, echoing in Darius's mind. The house lights began to flicker, and the whispers intensified, turning into distant screams and desperate wails. Darius, his heart pounding and breathing ragged, tried to turn off the television, but every time he tried, the voice became louder and more dominant. Terrified yet determined, he knew he couldn't escape or ignore what he had unleashed. He needed to face the dark truth lying in the mausoleum and find a way to end the curse he had inadvertently released. With determination and fear in his eyes, he decided that this would be the night he would unravel the mystery surrounding the statue and the legacy his grandfather Samuel had left him. The heavy cemetery gate, with its aged and moss-covered bars, stood imposing, but not enough to stop Darius. With each step he took towards the mausoleum, shadows seemed to move around him, whispering warnings that only the wind understood. The moon, at its zenith, dimly and eerily lit the path leading to the statue. And there it was, even more majestic and terrifying under the night's cloak. As Darius approached, he could feel the statue seeming to come to life. A subtle vibration, almost imperceptible, emanated from it, like the beat of a heart buried in stone. Every detail of the statue seemed more defined, and for a moment he would swear he saw a flicker in those glassy eyes. However, what truly caught his attention was the base of the statue. It seemed different, as if something had shifted or been altered. The runes carved into the base emitted a faint glow, and a soft yet persistent hum filled the air. Darius's hands were cold and sweaty. Holding the key, his breathing became erratic. Remembering the vision of his grandfather, and filled with a mix of fear and determination, he inserted the key into the lock hidden amongst the runes. The metallic sound echoed in the cemetery's deathly silence. Turning the key, the air grew thick and icy. Then a black, viscous fog began to emanate from the compartment, enveloping everything in its path. But what truly chilled Darius's blood wasn't the fog itself, but the heart-wrenching screams that seemed to come from within it. Pitiful voices, wails, and pleas from 1,000 souls that had been trapped and tortured in some dark limbo. Those sounds were a cacophony of despair and anguish, echoing in Darius's ears, reminding him of the weight of the secret he had dared to unearth. From among the graves, an old man emerged. His skin, etched with the wrinkles of time, was as pale as the moon, and his eyes, clouded by the years, shone with a mix of anger and fear. His robe, worn by the decades, whispered forgotten tales with every move he made. The atmosphere grew colder around him, and each step he took seemed to echo with a sound not of this world. "You have awakened an evil older than time itself," he exclaimed, his voice piercing the grave-like silence. Each word was laden with warning and desperation. His trembling hand rose to point at the mausoleum, the source of the dark mist that still lingered in the air. It was then that the ethereal Samuel made his appearance. Emerging from a beam of silvery light, his figure was intangible, like a luminous mist. His face, though devoid of color, still reflected the wisdom and kindness that Darius remembered. But there was a shade of sadness in his eyes. Despite his ghostly appearance, he radiated a comforting warmth amidst the cold surroundings. "The guardian is right," said Samuel in a mournful voice, his tone echoing with the sadness of one who has seen the past and the future and knows the consequences of human actions. "What you have unleashed is not just evil. It's a darkness that has waited eons to spread again. You should have listened to the stories not merely as tales, but as warnings." His gaze settled on Darius, conveying not only reproach, but also a deep desire to right the wrong that had been done. The battle between Darius and the sorceress unleashed a whirlwind of darkness and magic. Darius's former home, once filled with warm and comforting memories, had now become a battlefield. The chandeliers flickered violently as shadows twisted and danced to the rhythm of the enchantments cast by the sorceress. Her fiery eyes, two glowing embers, fixed on Darius with a mix of fury and amusement. The sorceress's laughter, sharp and shrill, echoed in Darius's ears like a cursed echo. Each time he tried to approach, waves of dark energy repelled him, leaving burns on his skin. But Darius did not give up. Despite the fear that lurked within him, he remembered his grandfather's words and the reason he was there. Wielding the locket, an ancient and ornamental object that had belonged to his family for generations, Darius recited a spell his grandfather had taught him. A bright light emanated from the locket, casting a glow that seemed to cut through the darkness itself. The sorceress, caught in the beam of light, tried to resist, her screams warping in the air. With each step that Darius took toward her, strengthened by the power of the locket, the sorceress's hold over the surroundings lessened. The walls of the house began to vibrate, family portraits shook, and the floor trembled. But Darius, with determination, never took his eyes off the entity he had released. Finally, with one last scream of resistance, the sorceress was absorbed into the locket. Darius, exhausted but resolute, sealed the object, ensuring that the evil he had unleashed would not threaten Merrow again. The house, though damaged by the confrontation, returned to its usual calm, with only the whisper of the night wind recalling the epic battle that had been fought within. The silence in Merrow was deafening after the revelation of what Darius had inadvertently unleashed and subsequently contained. The tranquil mornings were no longer the same. The air carried a weight the inhabitants hadn't felt for generations. It was a somber reminder of the truths they had chosen to ignore. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, the town authorities and elders gathered at the town hall, where after heated discussions, it was decided to fortify the mausoleum. Men and women worked day and night, erecting thick walls of sturdy stone, which stood as a bastion against dark forces. These walls, more than a mere physical barrier, represented the town's determination to protect future generations from the forgotten evil. At various points, they placed bronze plaques, their engravings in dark tones recounting the story of the sorceress and Darius's brave fight. These plaques were not only a warning, but also a reminder of the constant vigilance needed to keep darkness at bay. Darius, meanwhile, underwent a transformation. The youthful innocence that once shone in his eyes was replaced by steely determination. His home, once a haven of happy memories with his grandfather Samuel, was now filled with ancient texts, artifacts, and protective symbols. He delved into arcane studies, learning the techniques and rituals passed down through generations of guardians. The village children looked at him with a mix of fear and respect, whispering among themselves about the protector of Merrow. The shadow of the sorceress, though imprisoned, was ever present, and Darius, with his renewed purpose, patrolled the graveyard every night, ensuring that the entity found no flaw in his defenses. With every full moon, while most of the village slept peacefully, Darius, lamp in hand, walked beside the mausoleum, the eternal watchman, ensuring that the darkness that once threatened Merrow never saw the light again.